welcome to our deep dive. You guys send in a ton of articles about paparazzi and celebrity photography, legal cases, historical accounts, even celebrity strategies for dealing with those cameras.
It's fascinating stuff.
It really is. It's kind of crazy, though. You look at it all, and it makes you wonder, like, in the age of Instagram, are paparazzi even, I don't know, necessary anymore?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because you've got celebrities connecting directly with fans, they could really control their image.
Right, exactly.
You'd think the paparazzi's whole role would be kind of, I don't know, diminished.
That's a valid point, yeah.
So today we're going to pack this whole complex relationship between celebrities, the paparazzi, and us, the public.
Sounds good.
Like, how has this whole pursuit of the perfect shot evolved? Where are the ethical and legal lines? And do celebrities ever actually use the paparazzi to their advantage?
All great questions.
All right, so let's go back to the beginning. I mean, the term paparazzi comes from Fellini's La Dolce Vita, right?
Yeah, it does, yeah. But the funny thing is, the real-life inspiration, Felice Quinto, he actually chose to be an extra in the movie instead of playing the photographer.
Really?
Yeah.
That's wild.
I know.
It's like he understood the irony of seeking fame by capturing other people who are seeking fame.
Right.
But you know those early paparazzis in 1950s Rome? They weren't all chasing scandals, were they? Like another article, it mentions Brigitte Bardot leaving a hotel, but there's also a picture of Audrey Hepburn at a greengrocer.
Yeah, I mean, it was a different era of celebrity, right? It felt less, I don't know, manufactured, less about the scandal. It felt more about capturing a moment, even the mundane ones.
Yeah.
But then, you know, as the appetite for these images grew, the tactics definitely changed.
Yeah.
Think about, like, the shift from those Roman photos to, say, Princess Diana.
Oh, yeah.
It's a huge shift.
Well, in Princess Diana's tragic death, that really put the spotlight on the dark side of this whole pursuit. And it's crazy because even decades later, even with more awareness, you know, you see stars like Britney Spears shaving her head, and it almost feels like a desperate attempt to regain control in a world where you're constantly watched.
It's a really stark example of the psychological toll this kind of scrutiny can take on someone. Like the celebrity privacy article that you sent, it talks about how a lot of stars, they talk about feeling constantly on. Like they can never truly relax.
It's got to be exhausting.
It is.
Like never being able to truly let your guard down.
Exactly.
So it's almost like the public, we want this illusion of access, you know, that peek behind the curtain. But do we fully grasp the human cost? Legally, though, can celebrities actually fight back against all of this?
I mean, the legal landscape is really fascinating when it comes to this kind of thing because you have the U.S. First Amendment, right, which protects news gathering, but then you look at California law and it shows this constant struggle, this, you know, trying to balance that freedom with protecting celebrities. But the thing is, paparazzi, they always find ways to adapt.
It's like a legal arms race.
It really is.
But what about in other countries? Like, you know, Sienna Miller and some others in the UK won those injunctions against paparazzi.
Right.
And that seems a lot tougher than anything we have here.
It does. And I think it points to, like, a fundamental cultural difference. UK law, it just seems to prioritize individual privacy more, even for public figures. So, yeah, celebrities there may have a little bit more legal recourse.
So it's not all doom and gloom, though, right?
No, not necessarily.
Because you mentioned celebrities actually using the paparazzi to their advantage.
Yeah.
How does that work?
I mean, I think it's about control. Like, instead of constantly reacting, celebrities will kind of stage manage the encounter. And I think Kim Kardashian's a really good example of this. She's basically turned paparazzi into an extension of her PR team.
Right, but wouldn't that make people even more skeptical of everything they see? Like, if it's all orchestrated, where's the authenticity?
You're right. I mean, that's really the blurred line in the age of social media.
It's true.
You know, like Ryan Reynolds using paparazzi shots for product placement. Is that clever marketing or is it manipulation?
Right. It's hard to say.
It's hard to say. And legally, it gets even trickier.
Wait, really? How so?
Well, think about Lisa Rinna. She's used the implied license defense. So basically, by posing, she's arguing she gives some rights to the image. It kind of challenges the whole idea that paparazzi own the photo outright.
Oh, interesting.
It's a fascinating legal argument.
So celebrities are kind of fighting back, legally and strategically. But how has social media, where we all kind of participate in this image consumption, how has that changed things? I mean, you follow celebrities online, right?
I do.
Do these legal battles, do they change how you view those photos at all?
That's a great question. I mean, On the one hand, social media does give celebrities more control. Like, they can bypass traditional media, put their own message out there. But it also creates this, like, insatiable demand for content,
Yeah.
which just feeds right back into the whole paparazzi system.
So it's almost like a symbiotic relationship, even if it's not always a healthy one.
Right, exactly.
But have paparazzi tactics actually changed in response to all of this?
Yeah.
Like, are we seeing fewer of those aggressive car chases now that stars are putting themselves out there online?
I mean, there definitely has been a shift. Like, those aggressive chases, they still happen, but you definitely see more, like, calculated collaborations.
Oh,
Yeah, so paparazzi might actually be working with celebrities to stage those, candid shots that we see everywhere.
oh.
It's all about creating the illusion of catching them off guard.
So it's less about actually catching them off guard and more about creating that illusion.
Right.
Got it.
And that further blurs the ethical lines. Plus, the value of a paparazzi photo has changed too. Everyone has a camera phone now. Those quote-unquote exclusive shots aren't as exclusive.
Right.
So maybe the aggressiveness has lessened, but I think the ethical questions have only multiplied.
Yeah, it's a very complex evolution, kind of reflecting our own evolving relationship
Right.
with fame and privacy. We've covered a lot of ground here, but this case with Lisa Rinna and implied license, it really makes you pause and think.
I know, it really does. What's fascinating about it is that it challenges the traditional power dynamic. Like, if celebrities actually have more control over their image, even in those, candid shots, what does that mean for the future of paparazzi?
Yeah. It's almost like the line between subject and photographer is blurring, just like the line between public and private.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder, with all these shifting dynamics, are we heading towards a complete, reinvention of what paparazzi even means?
It's a great question to consider, like the legal battles, the ethical dilemmas, the impact of social media. It all points to a much bigger conversation about our fascination with fame and the lengths we'll go to for a glimpse behind the curtain.
So we left off talking about Lisa Rinna and that implied license thing.
Right.
It really highlights how the law is struggling to keep up with, all these new tactics that celebrities are using.
Yeah.
But let's zoom out for a second.
Okay.
Like, the First Amendment protects freedom of the press.
Right.
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 But where does that freedom end and intrusion begin, especially for celebrities?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right? I mean, the First Amendment, it's not absolute.
Right.
Even when it comes to photographing public figures.
Yeah.
Like, the courts have recognized that individual privacy rights, they sometimes outweigh that freedom of the press.
Right. So it's about finding that balance.
It really is.
But isn't it also tricky to define what intrusion even means?
It is.
Especially with those long lenses that paparazzi use. They're not always physically getting in someone's face.
Right. That's where the legal concept of intrusion upon seclusion comes in.
Okay.
So it's not so much about physical space. It's about invading someone's privacy, like in a way that, a reasonable person would find highly offensive.
Okay.
So even if a paparazzi is technically in a public space,
Right.
if they're using those intrusive methods to capture those private moments, that could actually be considered a violation of privacy.
So even a photo on a seemingly empty street,
Right.
if it's taken with a super zoom lens and it just feels invasive,
Right.
that could be grounds for a lawsuit.
Potentially, yeah. And
Yeah.
this is where California law, it gets really interesting. Because they've really been trying to address those specific tactics that celebrities find, the most intrusive, like, those aggressive car chases.
But don't paparazzi argue that they're just documenting what's happening in public?
They do, yeah.
How have California lawmakers responded to that?
Well, California law now, it specifically prohibits reckless driving while pursuing a celebrity to capture photos or videos.
Okay.
So it recognizes that there's a difference between legitimate news gathering
Right.
and harassment, even if it's happening in a public place.
Makes sense. But paparazzi always seem to find ways to push the boundaries.
It's true.
Is there any way to actually enforce these laws?
I mean, it's tough because enforcing these laws, it often relies on celebrities actually coming forward.
Right.
And many choose not to for fear of, backlash or appearing, difficult. But California has also increased the penalties for harassment of celebrity children, which I think is important.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge because kids, they definitely didn't sign up for this life in the spotlight.
Right, exactly.
You know, they're still developing. They deserve some semblance of normal life.
Exactly. But even with all of these legal protections in place, it's still a constant battle. Paparazzi, they often find loopholes
Great.
or argue that their actions are justified in the name of news gathering. It's a constantly evolving legal landscape.
It's like they have this whole legal playbook designed to, like, test the limits of what's permissible.
Yeah, it really is.
But this isn't just a U.S. phenomenon, right?
No.
What about how other countries are handling the paparazzi?
You're right. Paparazzi exist everywhere. And different countries, they've taken different approaches.
Okay.
The UK, for example, has a much stronger tradition of protecting individual privacy,
Right.
even for public figures. So they have stricter laws against harassment and like stricter rules about what can be published without consent.
So celebrities in the UK, I guess they might actually have a bit more legal recourse than their counterparts in the U.S.?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, they've successfully obtained like injunctions preventing paparazzi from, gathering outside their homes or following them in cars.
Wow.
It really highlights those different cultural attitudes toward privacy and the role of the press.
It's fascinating how these cultural differences play out in the legal arena.
It really is.
But with social media giving celebrities a direct line to their fans, has the role of the paparazzi changed at all?
That's a good question.
Like, do they even have the same influence that they used to?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? I mean, social media, it has undeniably disrupted that, like traditional media landscape. Celebrities, they can control the image they project.
Right.
They're sharing carefully curated photos and videos directly with their fans, completely bypassing the traditional media gatekeepers.
So you'd think the paparazzi would become, I don't know, obsolete, but that just doesn't seem to be the case, right?
We're not at all.
They're still out there snapping away.
They've adapted. I mean, they've become incredibly savvy with social media themselves.
Really?
Oh, yeah. They're monitoring celebrity accounts for clues about their whereabouts.
Wow.
And they're using those posts as starting points for their own pursuits.
So they're basically using social media as a real-time tracking device.
Pretty much, yeah.
It's, I don't know, a little creepy, but I guess it makes sense.
It does.
I mean, in a world where virality is currency, those exclusive shots, even if they're staged, they still have value.
They do. And paparazzi have found new ways to monetize their work, in this social media age. So,
Right.
They might sell tips to gossip blogs or even like build their own social media followings and sell photos directly. It's like they're becoming their own little media outlets.
It's a fascinating evolution, but it also feels a bit, I don't know, unsettling.
Yeah, it does.
Like if paparazzi are essentially becoming media outlets themselves,
Yeah.
doesn't that further blur the lines of accountability? Like, who's responsible for ensuring ethical practices?
That's a valid concern. And it's one of like the many ethical dilemmas that this whole paparazzi phenomenon raises. It forces us to confront the question, like, are we as a society okay with this constant pursuit of celebrity images, even if it comes at the expense of privacy and dignity?
It's a tough question because, let's be honest, we all contribute to this system in some way.
We do.
We click on the articles, we watch the videos, we follow the gossip.
Yeah.
It's a cycle that's hard to break free from.
It really is. Like our fascination with celebrity culture, it fuels this entire industry.
Yeah.
But maybe, by having these conversations, by raising awareness about the ethical implications, maybe we can start to shift the dynamic a little bit.
It's about being more conscious consumers of, like, celebrity news.
Exactly.
Maybe questioning the sources, considering the motivations, and holding, the media, including paparazzi-turned media outlets, accountable for their practices.
Exactly, because ultimately I think we have the power to shape the kind of celebrity culture we want to see. And that starts with, being aware of our own role in this complex ecosystem.
So we've discussed the legal complexities, the impact of social media, even the cultural differences and how paparazzi are viewed.
Yeah.
But one thing I keep coming back to is like the psychology of all of this. We've talked about the impact on celebrities, but how does fame itself, how does that shape their behavior and their relationship with privacy?
I mean, fame is a double-edged sword, right?
It really is.
It brings, attention, adulation, and opportunities, but it also comes with a loss of privacy, that constant scrutiny, and the pressure to maintain a certain image.
It's like they're living in a gilded cage.
It is.
Surrounded by admirers, but always feeling watched and judged.
Exactly. And that pressure can lead to some, interesting psychological adaptations.
Right.
Some celebrities, they thrive in the spotlight. They become masters of self-promotion. They use the media, even the paparazzi, to their advantage.
It's like they become incredibly media savvy. They understand how to, like, play the game, manipulate the system.
Right. They turn the attention into fuel for their careers.
Yeah.
But for others, that constant scrutiny can be really overwhelming.
Oh, yeah.
They might retreat from the public eye, become reclusive, or even experience anxiety and depression. The pressure to be on all the time, to always look and act perfect, it takes a toll.
It's a reminder that celebrities, despite their fame and fortune, are still human beings.
They are.
They have vulnerabilities, they make mistakes, and they deserve compassion.
They absolutely do. Like, we need to humanize celebrities, to see them as complex individuals rather than just, two-dimensional images.
Right.
When we dehumanize them, I think we make it easier to justify that intrusive behavior, whether it's from the paparazzi or from our own, insatiable curiosity.
Yeah, it's about finding that balance between appreciating their talent and respecting their humanity. A balance that, frankly, we haven't quite figured out as a society.
Not yet. It's a challenge worth striving for, though, because I think finding that balance could lead to, a healthier and more respectful relationship with fame, with the media, and, with each other. But to your point, this isn't just about celebrities and the paparazzi.
Right.
This is about us, the consumers of this content.
Exactly. The paparazzi, they wouldn't exist without a market for their photos.
They wouldn't.
Our clicks, our views, our purchases, all of that contributes to the demand for those images. So where does the responsibility lie?
That's a good question to ponder. It's easy to get caught up in the drama and the glamour of celebrity culture, but I think we have a responsibility to be more mindful consumers of that content.
It's about being more critical of where our information is coming from.
Right.
Maybe even questioning whether a photo was obtained ethically, or if we're, supporting a culture that prioritizes sensationalism over substance.
Exactly. It's about making informed choices and maybe even holding the media accountable for the content they produce, whether it's, traditional outlets or those paparazzi who have become media entities in their own right.
You've raised some excellent points. It's a lot to process. Before we move to our final thoughts, what do you think, as our resident expert, is the most surprising takeaway from all the research we've discussed?
Honestly, the most surprising thing for me is how the law is being used as a tool, not just to react to paparazzi, but to really reshape that whole power dynamic. Like Lisa Rinna's implied license argument,
Right.
whether it holds up in court or not.
Right.
It's like a sign of things to come.
Yeah, it's almost like celebrities are taking a page from the paparazzi playbook,
Right.
using legal gray areas to their advantage.
Exactly.
But if celebrities actually gain more control over those, candid shots,
Yeah.
what happens to the paparazzi's role? Are we heading towards a future where they're, obsolete?
That's the big question, right? I mean, the future of paparazzi, it's inextricably linked to the future of fame itself.
Yeah.
And that future is, it's getting harder and harder to predict.
I mean, look, think about the rise of AI.
Oh, yeah.
We talk about how social media has blurred the lines, but AI could completely shatter them.
It could.
One of the articles you sent mentioned AI being used to create hyper-realistic images.
Yeah.
What happens when anyone can generate a, quote, candid photo of a celebrity without even needing a camera?
The implications are huge.
It really is.
It could devalue the work of paparazzi, make those exclusive shots, worthless.
Yeah.
Why pay for a real photo when you can generate a fake one that's just as believable?
And then the whole concept of authenticity
Right.
becomes meaningless.
It does.
But wouldn't that also raise a whole bunch of new legal questions?
Absolutely.
If someone creates an AI-generated image of a celebrity, who owns the rights to that image?
Exactly. It's a legal minefield.
We already have laws around copyright and the right of publicity.
We do.
But how do those apply to images that are created by, algorithms rather than humans?
It's a great question.
It feels like we're entering uncharted territory,
It does.
legally and ethically.
Yeah.
And it's not just about paparazzi anymore. It's about this entire media landscape
It is.
and how we, as a society, how we consume and interpret images.
This whole deep dive has really highlighted how interconnected everything is.
It really has.
The paparazzi, they're just one thread in this, vast tapestry of fame, privacy, technology, and the law.
Yeah.
And pulling on that one thread, it unravels a whole web of complex issues.
We started this deep dive asking if paparazzi are even necessary in the age of social media.
Right.
And the answer, it seems, is far from simple.
It is.
Their role is changing, the lines are blurring, and the future, well, the future's uncertain.
Yeah, it is. What we do know is that the public's fascination with celebrity,
Right.
it isn't going away anytime soon. But as consumers of that content, I think we have a responsibility to be more aware, more critical, and more mindful of the impact our choices have.
So the next time you see a paparazzi photo, whether it's online, in a magazine, splashed across a billboard,
Yeah.
take a moment to really think about the story behind it.
Right.
Consider the motivations of the photographer, the celebrity, and even yourself as the viewer.
Yeah.
Ask yourself those, critical questions about ethics, privacy, and the impact of our choices.
Because we all have a role to play in shaping the culture we live in. And that includes the world of celebrity and, the paparazzi that so relentlessly pursue them.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of paparazzi. It's been a fascinating exploration, and we hope it's given you some food for thought.
I hope so too.
Until next time, keep asking those critical questions, and remember that behind every image, there's a story waiting to be uncovered.